Hi all and welcome to the show. The first section is nonsense emitting whirling shit, or better known as news. Meghan and Harry have announced the birth of their second welfare-based offspring this week, called Lilibet. Lily Diana Mountbatten Windsor was introduced to the world in La La Land. Lilibet is Lilith, just saying. The UK government is believed to be working on backup options if the Prime Minister decides he has to delay stage 4 of the roadmap of the lockdown. And currently the government is planning to ease restrictions on June 21st as planned. Yeah, right. But concerns is growing over the Indian variant, which could delay the lockdown further. And then they said this. Are you ready, Glenn? Lockdown easing could be delayed for 2 weeks. Well, after June 21st, if hospitalisations rise across the UK. As a major news station in the UK asks the question, is it time to ditch your unvaccinated friends? Too late. We already ditched you and your walking time bomb of rank jackassery, operating under a Milgram experiment. Now you joined the pharma experiment. Good luck with that and happy lizard-like shedding to you all. Facebook is now removing groups and pages that discourage people from getting vaccines. As social media giants grapple with the anti-vaccine movement, Specialist Disinformation Reporter, yes, they've created a whole title for that person, a Specialist Disinformation Reporter, Mariana Spring meets everyday citizens battling conspiracy theories in their spare time. And what this group have done, they've now employed honeypot groups, yes, that was their term, to lure in anti-vaxxers, and then their agents try to divide them and sway them to their side and opinion. And he said, if I was to actually create a group saying I'm going to re-educate you, then I'm not going to get any takers. So I have to do it in a stealth way, which is a bit underhand, I suppose, but the intentions are good. No, they're not. And once people are drawn in, the two moderators try to reason with them to bring them back to reality. No, you're bringing them back to La La Land, where Harry and Meghan live. And this is classic agency tactics, and the same tactic used by the corrupt media. Why? The media are ran by the agencies is why. COVIDiot puppets dancing to the tune of psychopaths. YouTube has removed more than 30,000 what they describe as misleading COVID-19 vaccination videos in the past 5 months, it said. And a YouTube spokeswoman said the videos contradicted, contradicting my contradictions again, vaccine information from the World Horror Organization and or the NHS. More blocking. Authorities in Denmark have shut down much of the country's access to the video platform BitChute in the name of preventing the spread of dangerous information about COVID. And Denmark's National Police Cybercrime Centre petitioned for a court order to block the site, and ISPs followed suit by blocking access to users. Another blocking. American author Naomi Wolf has been suspended from Twitter after spreading vaccine truth. They call it misinformation. We call it truth. Dr. Wolf, well known for her acclaimed book, The Beauty Myth, posted a wide range of what they claimed were unfounded theories about vaccines. And one tweet claimed that vaccines were a, quote, software platform that can receive uploads, unquote, and that is correct. She also compared Dr. Anthony Fauci to Satan, to her more than 140,000 followers. You see, truth gets you banned in their world, the world of COVIDiots. And all it proves is they are terrified. Absolutely terrified, because they're losing control of the narrative. I would say they've lost it. Their lies are falling apart, their system is falling apart, and their world is falling apart. Happy phasing and shifting, Liliths. In a White House press conference this week, Jen Psaki, the latest designated White House spokesperson of lies and deflection, chimed in on the Fauci emails, and yet no rational person can defend those emails. You know what? The conspiracy theorists were right again. And to say differently makes you a retard, pure and simple. Now, she defended Anthony Fauci amidst the backlash on his recently released emails, saying that he, quote, he's been an undeniable asset in our country's pandemic response, unquote. An asset is an agent, and it's all very fitting to me. He who looks like a throwback to the SS agents, Dr. I Don't Give a Fauci, has played his role of creating enough panic to enable the system to wheel out their programs. That's what he did. Remember, I said they never do things for one reason. It's always three or more that are hidden. Closing businesses and harvesting the ones of value, whilst the workers are away, is one plan. Whilst hiding the fact that much of the money supply is no longer available, only 40 to 50% is in circulation. Digitalising the whole populace is another. Closing banks as they are not needed anymore is another. Making governments appear to the public to be stupid and incompetent. Governments were always that way, as that is how these corporations were designed. And the reason they've done that is it's all designed for the public backlash. Then they roll out their one world government as a replacement. It's problem, reaction and solution. Promoting cryptocurrency, the currency of the dead, that means, which is the digitizing of your money as well as your life. Vaccines are another control and or culling system. It roots out those who will not comply. Those that don't comply are not rabble rousers, contrary to their opinion. Not that I think highly of their opinions. Because those people thought for themselves and then came to an adult thinking decision, something the rest of their world is incapable of, it seems. They're just like the fence-sitters people, who are just about the worst kind. No conviction, no decision-making, no opinions. They just wait for others to make their minds up for them. Why? Because if it goes wrong, they can blame someone else, as it was not their decision. G7 nations are close to an historic deal to tax tech giants in a plan that would change the world, according to the German finance minister. And the plan to reform the taxation of tech firms and bring in a minimum level for business tax rates would change the world, he said, bringing in billions of pounds in tax revenue, which would otherwise have been shifted to low-tax countries. And the comments came as ministers from the group of 7 industrialised economies met in London for the first face-to-face summit since the onset of COVID-19. A load of mass people meeting a load of mass people, that is. But one has to question, are they panicking now as well? That these tech giants they all supported are going to dismiss them and their jobs, just as we warned in the Clowns in Panic show. Oh my. That's nearly 2 years old, that show now. The week after next. A former senior Treasury Department, which one? There are 7. Official was sentenced on Thursday to 6 months in prison for leaking thousands of confidential reports on suspect financial transactions. And the disclosures from Natalie Mayflower Sowers Edwards fueled reports on issues related to Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation of ties between Trump's campaign and Russia. They just won't let that drop, will they? Just goes on and on and on. Plus a series by news organisations across the globe last September examining why banks around the world continued to do business with clients who regularly engage in suspicious activity. Now, the sentencing in a high-profile leak case came just hours after the Justice Department disclosed that it had seized phone records and sought email metadata from 4 New York Times journalists, that's a laugh, journalist, as part of a series of leak investigations initiated during the Trump administration. It beggars belief. Russia. But you want to know who are the suspicious activity? Banks. They are the suspicious activity. Their whole operation is fraudulent. And it's possibly the only time that people had control of their own banks was in Greenwood, Oklahoma, with the Freedman Savings Bank that was run predominantly by the black people, known as the Black Wall Street. And then the US military went in and obliterated it, along with the town and its people, and wheeled out the classic Hebrew Anunnaki line of, it was the white supremacists. No, it wasn't. Remember, about 12 months ago now, 13 months maybe, I warned about the LifeForce digital wallet they were planning and implemented, and some called it haterade and some thought I was being vindictive. Well, as always, time tells. The European Union's Executive Commission has just announced the introduction of a pan-EU digital identification that citizens of member states can use across the entire bloc that will store important identification and official documents like driver's licenses, prescriptions, diplomas, and presumably the COVID-19 test, and also the vaccination certificates. Well, I never. It's the old classic marketing tactic of convenience. Remember that piece we did on convenience? except it's not convenience for us, just them. And this digital identification will be linked to an e-wallet, which they say large online platforms will be required to accept. But it's quite easy enough to imagine how this can get out of hand. At first, it becomes a soft sell. It's the marketing tactic. And we're told that there's no pressure to participate in what is essentially a government-created digital dragnet, a trap. But then the noose tightens as people start to realise how inconvenient life can quickly become if you are not connected to the Matrix, which is an AI skyguard called the cloud. I'm just waiting for them to call it the bearded man judgment cloud. But it's called a cloud for a reason, to cloud your judgment. And we've seen the same phenomenon recently with the vaccinations, which are still technically optional, but to which many are now simply succumbing, if only to avoid the hassles and hoop jumping that risks becoming the norm for those who aren't vaccinated and want to travel and live like they did pre-COVID. And it's hard not to think of the similarities with China's social credit system. Yes, it's already up and running. That was first introduced in 2014 and consisting of a similar digital ID and e-wallet that has evolved to control and deny access to everything from travel, high-speed internet and university access for individuals based on violations that the government approves of, like playing too many video games or making posts that the government doesn't like on social media, wasting money on things that the government considers non-essential, or generally not behaving in a government-approved way in your daily life. It's easy to see how it can slide. But that description is what I termed the continuum way of life. I asked you all to watch that. It tells you and showed us what they were doing. And yet many ignored it. And I will repeat again, cryptocurrency is a death sentence for the many. One or few non-approved misdemeanors and you are deleted with all your fresh air wealth from the system, with no means to support yourself. None. By that time, all the dollars, euros, pounds, and all the other currencies that are ongoing currently will have been deleted. Somehow, some way, we have to build our own bank again. And this is what Kim and I were doing successfully until she switched or walked into the clown plan of digital wallets. Is Bill Gates' 240,000 acres of land that is purchased in America a case of controlling the food and or getting out of paper assets into physical assets? Future think on that. Remember, we warned of issues to do with the border states last November-ish. We're just a few stories into tonight's show, and we've had 3 or 4 confirms of past warnings already, and yet some said we had no intel. Well, I never. Governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, this week issued a disaster declaration along Texas's southern border in response to the border crisis, providing more resources and strategies to combat the ongoing influx of unlawful immigrants. And the governor is authorising the use of all necessary and available state and local resources to protect landowners in these counties from trespassers and the damage they cause to private property. Now, the governor has also directed the Texas Department of Public Safety to enforce all federal and state criminal laws, including criminal trespassing, smuggling, and human trafficking. The governor directed the Texas Health and Human Services Commission to take all necessary steps to discontinue state licensure of any childcare facility under a contract with the federal government that shelters or detains unlawful immigrants. Additionally, the governor directed the Texas Commissions on Jail Standards and also the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement to work with Texas counties to provide appropriate guidance and request any necessary waivers in order to give counties the flexibility needed to establish adequate alternative detention facilities or otherwise add or expand capacity. The governor also directed these agencies to streamline procedures for licensing and transfers and to add any address and also any staffing issues that may arise in expanding capacity. Now, President Maskman Biden, who has open border policies, have paved the way for dangerous gangs and cartels, human traffickers, and deadly drugs like fentanyl to pour into our communities, said the governor. And meanwhile, landowners along the border are seeing their property damaged and vandalized on a daily basis, while the Biden administration does nothing to protect them. Now, Texas continues to step up to confront the border crisis in the federal government's absence, but more must be done, he says. Here's a solution for you. Go and deal with the Bush Texas Rangers. Yes, you heard that right. The Bush Texas Rangers. They're involved in it. Not to mention certain assemblies. Just saying. Now, by declaring a state of disaster in these counties, Texas will have more resources and strategies at our disposal to protect landowners and enforce all federal and state laws to combat criminal activities stemming from the border crisis. We will be working together with local law enforcement, and the state will continue to take robust and meaningful action to keep our communities safe. I agree. It should never have come to this. But we did warn once the DNC got in, this would unfold, and yes, it has. One of our easier predictions. And the people of Texas need to come together on this, and also Arizona and California. This is an organised invasion of criminality elements. Forget about the media-led, oh, the poor immigrants. Those people are the front behind the criminal elements at the behest of the agencies of this country and also the DNC. Another story, another confirm. Remember we warned about they were going after the millionaires. I think that was in the Clowns and Panic show as well. Well, listen to this one. Once it starts in one country, it rolls out in the rest. And Ireland is the testbed for this one. Irish millionaires are set to receive Bank of Ireland notifications this week advising of negative interest rates on their savings. And the less well off are feeling the worst, expecting negative interest rates to be rolled out to all customers regardless of amount in savings. And so the Bank of Ireland has been sending notifications to all their customers this week, and the notification informs all their personal customers that changes have been made to allow Bank of Ireland to go to negative interest rates, positive interest rates and zero interest rates to some personal savings accounts. And the notification states from the 6th of August this year, Bank of Ireland are changing the terms and conditions on some personal current accounts and personal deposit accounts to reflect that they can apply negative interest rates as well as positive and zero interest rates to these accounts. Now, Bank of Ireland go on to say that later this year, they intend to apply negative interest to personal customers with, on average, more than €1 million on deposit across all customer accounts. Now, last year, Bank of Ireland announced they were going to apply negative interest rates to some small business accounts as well. So what does this all mean? Well, with negative interest rates, it means they can take extra money out of your account each month, depending on the rate. Now, it is rumoured to be 0.6%, so just over half a cent, or half a euro, or half a penny for each unit of currency deposited in your account each month. And what this amounts to is another tax, just like inflation is another tax, just like the gas prices in America with the 0.0099 that they add to a gallon of gas is another sneaky tax. And this is another example of them taking more and more funds because they don't have enough. Now, it will start with the millionaires and people will say, oh, well, they can afford it. But once it becomes the norm, the threshold will go lower and the sly tax will steadily increase. This has to be stamped out now.